Hey, Elisa, welcome to the Beyond Jaws podcast. Are you ready to talk about sharks and rays?
I am super ready to talk about sharks and rays, and it's an honor to be in your show. I'm very grateful that you decided to invite me. So thank you.
Yes. All right. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to it.
I want to welcome to another episode of the Beyond Jaws podcast, where today we have the fabulous Elisa Areano from Guatemala, who's the founder and executive director of the Fundacion Mundo Azul, or otherwise known as Blue World Foundation, translated to English. It's an NGO aimed at protecting sharks, rays, and chimeras in Guatemala and Central America. Her background is, after graduating Rollins University in Florida, she worked in the private sector for several years until she decided to pursue her passion and become first a scuba diver, scuba instructor, and then in 2014, with her enthusiasm and passion and commitment to nature conservation, she founded her nonprofit organization, Blue World Foundation. Again, as I mentioned, is dedicated to protection and conservation of elasmobranchs. Her organization is the first and currently the only non-governmental organization in Guatemala that aims to protect these fascinating fishes through a comprehensive perspective. Elisa has established more than 20 national and international alliances and obtained donor support from nearly 40 to support nearly 40 conservation projects, reaching nearly 60,000 people, and has awarded numerous scholarships, including to fishers' families. She's represented the foundation both nationally and internationally, and her foundation has been involved in training government institutions, the private sectors, and universities and other NGOs in the visual identification of shark fins. And our foundation has also been very instrumental in updating the National Plan of Action for Conservation and Sustainable Use of Marine Species in Guatemala. And with that, Elisa, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
So our first question is, how'd you get interested in the field, in marine science, sharks? How'd you get interested?
Oh, wow. Yeah. Oh, well, like you said, I most of my life, I worked in the private sector. I studied economics, even though when I was a child, I wanted to be a vet or a marine biologist. It's just kind of funny that somehow the dream came true. I have 4 dogs, which basically I'm a vet, and now this nonprofit, where I have learned so much and where I continue learning more about biology. So I went, like you said, for a couple of months to Roatán. My dream was to be a dive instructor. I've always had a connection with the ocean since I was little, and nothing. So I went. I did my dive master, and then my work was saying, "Oh, when are you coming home?" And I was like, yeah, I'm coming home soon. I think I need to do an instructor course. I will be back soon, I promise." And then I did the instructor course. And then I had a lot of time with sharks. I actually had one of the persons that did my instructor course and my dive master was working a lot with sharks in Honduras, in Caracara, with reef sharks. And I don't know, it hit me the second that I dove with sharks, and I said, this is just an amazing experience. This is something weird, because I thought sharks ate people. And from that train of thought to going down and seeing them and feeling such peace, it changed my entire perspective. And well, while working as a dive master and as an instructor, I spent a lot of time in the ocean. And the second I had to leave, because it was time to go, I just like cried, like it was like a boyfriend or something, like a in the ocean. And then I came back to Guatemala, and I started looking for ways to help sharks. And I looked here, I looked there, and nobody would take me really seriously, because number one, I'm not a biologist, and number two, they're like, "What's this crazy lady coming here and doing this?" So finally, I got advice from a very good friend and said, if you really, really want to do this, you need to make a foundation. And 10 years ago, we did that. And ever since then, I'm here. And I absolutely love it.
Did,
We started with projects.
go ahead.
Pardon me?
I was going to say, I wanted to just back up for a little second here. When you worked before you decided to pursue your passion, you worked in the private sector. What type of work did you do? Just curiosity.
I did mostly real estate development.
Oh,
So I was a property manager, so you can imagine how much fun that is. Listening to people complain 24/7. If you do this, it's good. And yeah, like I wasn't in my passion. I think I studied economics at some point because I thought my mom would be proud of me since she was a business administrator, and since my family was all business, I wanted to be business as well. Little did I know that, that I would be doing this, and that this would be something that actually transformed my entire life, my spirit. I have learned so many things. I've had so many great experiences working with. Mostly what we do is we work with communities here in Guatemala. So right now we work with 5 communities in the Pacific of Guatemala. And then we also work in 3 communities in the Atlantic. And at first it was kind of weird because it was like, okay, I know I have to collect shark information in order to help them, but what kind of information? So it was kind of like a thesis for me, like just trying to find out what is it that you need to do in order to protect sharks? What is it that we need in the country in order to protect sharks? And of course, the first thing that came was, okay, what kind of sharks do we have here in Guatemala? And so we started working with one community in the Atlantic called Quetzalito, where I want Dave to come to because they have the most amazing deep water sharks, and it's like nonstop new species coming out, and it just kills me. Like it kills me. Like
it,
how many species we've been able to record with the help of the fishers.
yeah. And are the fishers? Are they targeting these? Is this for local consumption or for export, or what's the? Tell us about the fisheries.
The artisanal fishing fleet. So it's mostly people with very low income. So people with low income usually target fish that will be cheap in a way, so that they can eat. Just like rays as well. Rays are very cheap, so it's a very cheap protein that helps their consumption. But also in Lent here in Guatemala and most Central American and Latin countries, the price for shark goes up because they dry it up to make a thing that's called bacalao, which supposedly is not a dark meat, which is dark meat,
Yeah.
so that respect religious beliefs.
Right.
And so most of the sharks, for example, in the Caribbean, when we first went to Quetzalito, we tried to make an approach, and the first thing that they said was they were like, "No, what you want is you want to stop all shark fishing, and
Right.
we know all
Yeah.
you NGOs that do this and that."
Yeah.
And
There's no trust.
yeah, no trust whatsoever. Mostly also because fishers give a lot of information and then it's never given back to them,
Right.
Yeah.
Eh,
Right.
Yep.
which is something that we try to do in the foundation, always to give back the information of the community. So I went at some point to Mexico to try to figure out how am I going to win over these shark fishers that hate me. And somebody in Mexico, a good friend of mine, told me about an NGO that would give scholarships to shark fishers, and then shark fishers would share the data.
Right.
And then, it's a win-win because then kids get education.
Yeah.
So I tried that with the fishers, and I said, well, if you allow us to measure the sharks and take pictures and everything, what we can do for you is we can provide scholarships for your children. And it worked. It worked. And then, unfortunately, here in Guatemala, that area does not have much education provided for them. The secondary school that they can go to, like high school, it's about an hour and a half away from them. So there were a lot of teenagers that had absolutely nothing to do all day, all day, basically just Saturdays and Sundays. So we gave them that scholarship, and to the little children, we gave them their books, which helped the families,
Yeah.
And we
So,
saw it.
so the scholarships, what would they do with the scholarships? So you would educate them on the work that you do, like the work that the foundation was doing, or was it in just general education in itself?
Just general education.
So you pay for them to go to school.
Yeah, because
Gotcha.
I think that's one of the reasons here in our countries why we don't progress is that there is not enough education or no education for children. And when we started speaking with shark fishers, we would always ask, do you want your child to be a shark fisher? And all of them said no.
Right.
We don't want them to be shark fishers.
I got to ask you, like, how was it? Because, Guatemala is like several of those Central American countries where there's really been almost nothing done on shark research for ever, if anything. And so how was it for you, not having a background in marine biology, just going in to talk to these fishers? That had to have been an interesting experience. Could you share a little bit about how that was?
Well, it was just, like at first it was kind of like one shark fisher was the only one that trusted us. And he was the one that gave us data. And so when we had to do, for example, scientific long lines, we would hire him. We would just give him all the props in the world for helping us out. And then little by little, that was like, oh, I want the same thing as he does. And so we started with, I think at that point, it was seven boats that gave us information. And the fishers were very happy because, we always talk to them about management, but we talk to them about management more in regards of, do you want to have food for the rest of your life, or do you just want to, kill your food source? What other jobs do you guys have? And I think that was also something that made them think about their children. Their children being able to have opportunities and being able to choose what they want to be. That's the dream for everyone, for an economist like me.
Right.
My dream was to eventually see work with the ocean, and I'm sure those kids have many dreams. And so actually, two of them already graduated high school, which is very
Nice.
super, super, super happy for us. One is a woman, which I
Nice.
am super happy. She's an auditor. And the other one is studying business administration. And then, we had three other girls that graduated high school. Unfortunately, they didn't follow through. But I think it's a way where we're actually trying to help younger generations not have to go to fishing
Right.
as and economic means for their survival.
How was it being a young woman when you went into these towns and villages and stuff? Which is I assume most of the fishermen are mostly all males in there. So how was that? What was it? How was that?
Well, fortunately for me, I grew up with males all my life. I had two older brothers, that bullied me to death. When I was younger, I was a town boy, so all my friends were guys most of the time, and still to
Mm-hmm.
this day, I have more male friends than female friends. Um, so it wasn't so uncomfortable for me. And another thing that really helped me was that at some point, somebody asked me to do a course for diving for two communities of shark fishers. And so, once they see you handle those tanks, then they get
Right.
respect for you.
Right.
Like
Okay.
it,
Okay.
fishers will not have any judgment unless you look scared
Right.
or unless
Mm-hmm.
you don't do the same work that a
Like the
male would
physical
do.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Okay.
so, yeah.
Yeah.
And mhm.
I say, were you familiar? Or did you grow up along the coast in Guatemala, or did you grow up inland in Guatemala? Were you familiar with some of these
No,
places that had?
no, I grew up in the city. I grew up
Oh,
in the
okay.
city. But my mom was a fan of the ocean, and
Mm-hmm.
so every time she had a chance, she would bring us to Belize,
Oh,
and
okay.
we would
Ah.
do snorkeling in Belize. And
Mm-hmm.
back in the day when you could, just dive and grab a conch and eat it right there, and it
Mm-mm.
was back when that whole coral barrier, you couldn't go through it. You had to go all around it. There wasn't anywhere. It
Mm-hmm.
was a beautiful experience. So yeah, so I got that from my childhood, and I've always
Okay.
been, very very happy being near the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah, so
Nice.
okay, that's awesome. Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, I was going to ask, when you went from, real estate and property management to starting your own organization and doing what you do, and I'm sure there's other projects that you've done which we'll probably get into. Is it what you expected to get into when you want to learn about sharks, you want to protect sharks, you want to work with conservation, doing what you're doing now, working with communities and providing scholarships for education, was that what you expected? That was the means that you would have to go about getting sharks, learning more about sharks in Guatemala and protecting them. Was that what you expected when you first started, or did it change?
Mm, no, no, no. At first, I was a tree hugger. Don't kill anything, and watch out for that bee and that ant, and
Yeah.
like, oh, the poor sharks, and But then once you come to these communities and you realize their living standards, the conditions in which they live, um, putting yourself 3 seconds in their shoes and saying, this is their livelihood, this is
Right.
where they eat from.
Mm-hmm.
You have to, for me, it's become now more of a, I need to take care of those communities in order
Mm-hmm.
to take care of the sharks. You know, I need
Mm-hmm.
to come up with ideas of alternative livelihoods for them before I
Yeah.
come and do management or I and that has been, I think, one of the things that the fishers have appreciate from the foundation is that we have never ever ever um, um how do you say this killed their trust in a way
Yeah.
or
Mm-hmm.
or
Yeah. You never
Right.
betrayed their
Right.
trust. Yep.
we've
You
never
never
betrayed
betrayed trust. Yeah.
Yeah.
we've never betrayed their trust. And so I remember that the first time that I went to El Quetzalito, to this hole that has so much diversity and that it's just amazing. I went to do lionfish spearing.
Right.
And then I have a tattoo in my foot of a small hammerhead. And of course, when the fisher sees something of a shark, they will start bothering you, and try to kill that art. So they saw the hammerhead, and the fisher was like, "Come over here," and I'm like, I wonder what he's going to show me. And he shows me in his screen this beautiful nurse shark, and dead. And I was like, why do you do that? Why do you do that? And he's like, how am I supposed to feed my family?
Right.
And that hit me hard, that hit me hard. And I said, wow, here's a community where there's no potable water. At that time, there was no electricity. They have no health centers. They have no education. They have no opportunities. What are they supposed to do? And
Right.
that has been like in my mind for the past 9 years. And how can we create other income generators that will help decrease the pressure that they're putting on sharks and fish in general, and all marine life in general,
Right. Because it's all they know at that point. It's all they know.
Right.
It's what they're good at.
Do you know, have you determined from talking with them, because I mean, even though they've been doing this for 10 years, obviously there's been stuff going on a lot longer than since you've been involved. Do they tell you about changes in like, they used to catch like mostly like bony fishes, snappers and those, and now they're doing sharks because the other things are gone? Is that kind of, that's a typical story I've heard all over the world. Is that what you hear?
It it resonates, the story. And it is true, because you start seeing, since sharks are no longer in our coasts unless they went fish somewhere. It is like now they're hitting hard rays, because there's less sharks, and then there's rays. So they will always go for the next fish that they are able to capture, and that they are able to sell. But I think the biggest problem is for them is all the intermediaries that are in the commercialization chain of sharks and rays. I think in some cases we found at least 5 different people.
Right.
Wow.
So what happens? The price of sharks
Goes
drops,
up.
and
it goes-
of all fish drops. And then they have to overexploit in order to meet ends meet, because they're not paying them anything for their product.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's interesting. I would have thought it gone
Yeah.
I would thought it would have gone up.
So is it
That's
because the
interesting.
end price stays the
It's gone.
same, but everything else goes down because they want to meet the end price to sell to the people, right? Is that what it is?
The price is so low that they have to fish more.
Right, to make more money off.
Oh.
So therefore they have to exploit more.
Gotcha.
And say, for example, in another community that I was with them, at one point I was staying there, and they said to me, "Oh my God, we had such great catches of fish today, and this and that." And one of them says, "It's a blessing and a curse at the same time." And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, because since we caught, then the other fishers caught, and then the other fishers caught." And so what happens to us is we just get into this price war,
Yeah.
between us. And so the price collapses. And then at that point, they didn't have a cooler or how to maintain the fish fresh. And so they have to sell it at a nothing.
Just to
you
get
know?
rid of it, to make sure it doesn't all die.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do they
Yeah. So
now have they found since the price of the meat's going down, have they gotten to these other things like shark fins, shark liver oil? Is that what's happening with that? Anything or
shark fins, until I think 2020, they had a pretty good price. Since 2020, there hasn't been that much demand for shark fins, at least that I know. But yeah, shark fins are part of their subproducts of shark that gives an added value to the shark. In Guatemala, they use absolutely everything of the shark. Nothing gets wasted.
Yeah.
Um, uh, which is good, At least it's being used completely.
Right. Right.
Um, yeah, yeah.
Do they?
So,
Uh,
mhm.
no. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Uh,
Oh no, I
uh,
talk like
uh,
a parrot. So you gotta stop me.
oh, okay. Well, I was gonna ask you the fins. I assume are exported, correct? What market is for the fins?
Yeah, the fins are exported, and here in Guatemala, something weird happened in, I think, around 2018. Um, who knows who decided to go and talk to all of the big boats that
Mm-hmm.
take away the fins here in Guatemala, and probably made a letter saying, "Do not ship fins," and da 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 da. And they decided not to ship fins. So now all the fins of Guatemala go through El Salvador,
Mm.
Mm,
which
that's
is
interesting.
something that I don't think, well, in my personal opinion, and I might ask you to erase this, but in my personal, no, I won't, no, everyone knows that I think this, so it doesn't matter. In my personal opinion, I think it's not a good thing because a lot of the fins that that are from Guatemala are being processed with fins that are from El Salvador. So you won't know really, and that CITES would have to tell me how they figure out how many fins Guatemala has and how many fins El
Right.
Salvador has. Plus, all of the illegal fins that are carried to El Salvador because it's easy
Mm-hmm.
to send them there and to export
Yeah.
them.
Right.
Now, I hope with all of the new species that were enlisted in CITES, all the hammerheads and all the carcarinae, hopefully we will have better um, traceability, and hopefully at some point these countries will have NDFs, which is part of the work that we do. Um, Here in Guatemala, we work a lot with government,
Yeah.
and right now our battle is NDFs and legal acquisition findings to make sure that that the organisms that are being exported are really from Guatemala,
Right.
and they're not coming from Mexico, Belize, and everywhere,
Right.
and just being exported. So yeah.
Elisa,
Yeah.
can you just
Yeah.
let us know what NDF means, just for the audience?
Oh, it's non-detrimental finding.
Right.
So CITES, basically, what they do is they enlist with help of shark specialists like Dave.
Yeah.
Once they assess these species, they decide whether they're vulnerable or what's going on with them, and then in Appendix 2 species, basically Appendix 1 species is that no commercialization can be done. Like those sharks are done. You can export them. Now, Appendix 2 species are the job of each country that is a part of CITES to say whether it's still sustainable to export those species or not. And since I think there were a lot of look-alike species especially in the Carcarinidae family,
Yeah.
to species that are critically endangered, then they decided, "Boop, let's put them all together. Let's put them in Appendix 2 so that they can be separated, and then there's not so many lookalikes, and they will say, this is the species, this is the species, this species is not going to be like a big ball. especially for countries like ours where we have the government has very few support. They change every 4 years. It makes it more difficult, to install capacities in customs, through um, the equivalent of the IRS in the U.S. I don't know how to say that, but
Tax
uh,
guys, tax people.
Yeah.
the tax
Yeah,
people, yeah.
yeah.
And so right now, our goal as a foundation is to help the government be able to have all these non-detrimental findings by this year, putting into the
So,
Secretariat of CITES and having NDS. That's one of our goals right now that we're working very hard, and also the part of legal detrimental findings, which is all the traceability of the shark. The shark is from Guatemala. It's not coming from somewhere else. So that's another part of the work that we do, is a lot of talking to government and helping them in whichever way we can,
Right.
so that we can be a country that is in compliance with CITES, basically.
okay. Now, as part of this stuff, you're working with the government on adding to their national plan of action for sharks. Your organization been involved with that?
Yes, we started working it in 2019. It was
Mm-hmm.
quite. I actually have like the numbers. We went through in 2019. We worked jointly with the fisheries department into making the national plan of action for Guatemala, for shark rays and chimeras. It's actually the only national plan, which I have to say it, I'm very happy. It's the only national plan of management for any species in Guatemala, any
Mm.
whatsoever, any.
Okay.
And it took a while because we had a change of government in 2020. So we had one change of government. The vice minister then was like, yeah, we're going to sign it, and it's going to be a ministerial agreement and all of this. And then he left, and he left it there. And so in 2020, we started working again at it. And I think we passed by two whole fisheries department, three vice ministers, two ministers, two presidents, and one pandemic. And then finally, in 2001, it was published.
Okay.
But yes,
Okay.
we helped the fisheries department
Mm-hmm.
have a national plan of action for Guatemala. We still have a lot of work to do, lots of
Mm-hmm.
work to do, but
Uh,
but um, we have that guide to be able to help sharks and rays
yeah.
uh,
Now, you're
get
kind of
managed.
unique. You're kind of unique in that you actually have two coasts to work on. You got the Caribbean on your east coast and the Pacific on the west coast. Can you talk a little bit? What's it like? How is it like working in two different oceans? Essentially, what's that as far as the diversity, and is there any differences with the people and the communities on either coast?
Mm, yes, yes, yes. In the Caribbean, fishers are a little bit more laid back, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, well, they weren't at the beginning. They were not laid back, actually. They became laid back once again, like the trust is built.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In the Pacific, we started working in 2017 in an area called Las Lisas. And Las Lisas, what we started to monitor was all the landings that came from incidental catch of bony fish, but hammerheads, juvenile hammerheads, and neonates of hammerheads were captured incidentally with gill nets. And so we started recording, at what dates they come. So in the rainy season is when they all come. And we actually came up with this area that was also seen by other scientists. I don't want to take the entire credit from us, but other scientists had said, "Oh, this is a nursery shark. This is a nursery area for hammerhead sharks." And and now, that we've monitored for since 2017, we can definitely say that it's a nursery area, and a very important nursery area of hammerhead sharks. We also worked with another community in Zipacate in the Pacific, and they also are capturing a lot of small hammerhead sharks in the rainy season, and also in another community where they're also capturing small hammerhead sharks. And also but there's also, silky sharks that are also caught, rhizopronodon that are caught there as well, like is. So I think we think that the Pacific is a major, at least the Pacific of Guatemala is a huge nursery area for lots of sharks.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really neat.
So
That's really neat.
it's very neat. And right now with las risas, we were able to communicate and talk, and what they started to see was their fishing just being depleted and more depleted every year. And so right now we're working with them we've been working with them for 3 years, but everything takes time. You just have to be really patient and once in a while breathe and exercise and meditate
Yeah.
and do everything to keep calm.
Yeah.
And now the fishers from Las Lisas, 2 years ago, they said we want a non-replenishment zone, and they drew the non-replenishment zone, which would be excellent for Guatemala, because unfortunately the Pacific of Guatemala has no management whatsoever. So you see all these trawling, these shrimp boats, these huge trawling shrimp boats being at near 6 kilometers from the coast, which is the area where the fishers feed from, and just trawling away, trawling away everything.
Are they international fishers, or are they fishers from Guatemala?
No, they're fishers from Guatemala. Yeah.
Okay.
So if we're able to do this replenishment zone, uh, that'll take away the trawling, because what they want is they want a certain area, and they don't want anybody to fish. No spear fishing, no fishing. They want no fishing whatsoever. And so on the side, we started working, tagging small hammerheads, so neonates and juveniles, and with Floyd tags, because we can afford anything more. That's for the donors that hear you. We can't afford anything more. I'm kidding.
Feel free to make a shameless plug for donations. That's what the show's for.
No, but we were able to, tag them. And actually, a guy from Mexico came, from Pelagios, and he came to show us how to do the tagging of the small hammerhead sharks, because they're so fragile. You really need to get it done very quickly. So we started getting recaptures. So we're starting to make maps. And what we want to do is we want to see where these hammerhead sharks spend their first stages of life. And so that when we get the replenishment zone, maybe we can do something a little bit more harsher in a way of protecting them, and yeah, so, and Las Lisas is a perfect example of fishers who want to do conservation methods, because they have seen how their means of life is just going away.
Right.
But then we come to the harsh truth about our countries, which is Las Lisas is close to El Salvador, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of El Salvador people come and fish in Guatemala, and a lot of them have guns, and a lot of them are, you know, people,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
those people, and
Sounds like someplace I would
and
be looking for sharks.
yeah. Um, so we want to be able to do this ministerial agreement, and we want this this zone, this replenishment zone. But we want to make sure that also the government of Guatemala, says, hey, okay, we're going to do this, but we're going to be protecting the coast of Guatemala so that no Salvadorian fishers come and, disrupt what we believe that in 5 years we'll finally, have that floating effect and give them, a means of living.
One thing you talk about the hammerheads. I just got to ask you, what species of hammerhead?
Spina lewini.
Oh, okay, the scalloped hammerhead. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah.
I thought that was the case. I thought that was it, but I just had to ask just to make sure for all the shark nerds listening out there that what hammerhead species it was. So,
Yeah. No, no,
yeah.
no, no.
So
But
what?
but we're trying to do also some collection of tissue for the small hammerhead sharks, the scallop hammerhead,
Mm-hmm.
because there's so little that we think that there might be more of other species of hammerheads there that we can't
Oh.
recognize because they're so small. So that's
Mm-hmm.
something that we want to do is starting to get tissue samples, and so
Mm-hmm.
that we can determine for sure that it's the only hammerhead that is becoming a byproduct because it gets used. It gets used for ceviche.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
They
okay.
use that. They
Okay.
use it for ceviche.
Okay. Are there?
Um, and yeah,
I got to. No, I just got to ask you. So I got to ask this question here. Like, so because obviously sawfish. Are there any? Have they pretty much disappeared from Guatemala, or have you seen any? I just because I know it's such a critically endangered rag.
pretty much disappeared from Guatemala. I think the only rostrum that we
Mm-hmm.
found was in Sarstung, in one of the communities where we work. And I tried the guy to give it to me, but no, nothing worked.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The rostrum.
But
But that was seen, the guy was telling me that was his dad's, and that hasn't been seen in 40 years. But he tells the
Right.
stories of how in the river they would find it always, but gill nets,
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah,
They get
And
caught.
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah. And
go ahead.
yeah, and in that, actually, in that community, we're starting uh, an alternative livelihood for them, which is working
Mm-hmm.
pretty well. Which is we're harvesting honey from mangrove trees. So we did a little
Mm-hmm.
apiary, and the beauty is that the mangrove trees, they flower all year long, so
Mm-hmm.
they will always have flowers. And they were actually were able to harvest a good amount, 60 gallons of
So,
um, of honey. And women were able to, the community women, which usually don't have much economic independence because they have to make the lunch and take care of the kids and the grandpa and the grandma and everything else.
mm-hmm.
They're being able to make an economic income out of that. And we've got two fishers, shark fishers, who have also come into this. And so hopefully we will get a very good production of honey at some point, and maybe other people will join in and somehow reduce the pressure of
Right.
shark
I,
fishing.
so I got to ask you because I see in your social media you have a lot of you post a lot about the honeybees and honey production and stuff. And is this just something that just you did? Was this one of these sort of unintended things you didn't expect that you kind of came across, and now you kind of help promote the? Can you explain a little bit about the whole honey? That you did a little bit more, but is it something? Was it an unexpected thing?
No, actually, it was in 2021. I was speaking to a friend of mine who was getting her doctorate in mangroves and bees. Just
Hmm.
luck. I'm a lucky lady. Luck.
Yeah, I
Just
guess
pure
so.
luck. Yeah, and then I was with a donor and they were like, yeah, we need a project that's like innovative and that it has to do with conservation of oceans, but also livelihoods. One of these grants that is like a matrix. And I was like,
Mhm.
okay. And then I had talked to one of my team members, and I said, what can we do for this project? And she was like, do you remember that conversation that we had with the lady and the doctorate and mangroves and bees? That would be an awesome project. And I was like, okay, let's try it. And we applied for the grant,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
we had with two experts that know a lot about bees.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
we've been working with the community for 2 years, and we want to continue working with them as long as we can to be able to make sure that they have good financial background. Because
Right.
these projects, if you don't I don't want to say help because they don't need any help.
Support.
But
Support.
that are supported in the
Yeah.
areas
Mhm.
where they have no experience, like for example, financials,
Right.
taxes, social media, how to merchandise your product. How to become a community, how not to fight over it. Because that's another thing. The fighting
Mhm.
of the money and stuff like that. And so we've been working with them now for 3 years, and we're looking for more donations. We're writing grants and grants and grants to make sure that they
Mhm.
get their storage room. One is the storage room because we want to be able to meet sanitation uh, things in Guatemala,
Right.
and and also so that they can make more byproducts of bees, like shampoo of bee, or like
Yeah.
propolis, or all of these extras of bees, um, so they can um, shift away from sharks and
Right.
Sharks.
come to
Sharks. Yeah.
bees,
Yeah. Yeah. Come to
and,
yeah.
and maintain mangrove trees.
Yeah.
And then
For
maintain
sure.
mangrove trees. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You,
Go
yeah.
ahead,
It's
Andrew.
it's. It, I was just gonna say it's very interesting your organization because it seems like it's really based on getting the pressure away from sharks from shark fishing by offering these alternative livelihoods, so supporting the community and getting education or starting potentially a new company or like a new business and things like that, which is wonderful. Then you advocate for certain things and you work with the government to consult on laws like CITES and international agreements like CITES to make sure that they regulate and they follow the regulations.
Hmm.
And then you track sharks as well, and you do some like scientific studies to find out more about the sharks and help discover nursery areas. That's a lot for one organization. And I was just on your website earlier, and like you don't have like the size of the team that you would expect for the amount of things that you do, the amount of services that you provide. How does your team get it all done? That's the question I have to ask.
Well, we work with in the Pacific. We work with shark fishers as well. So we train them. We
Right.
train the shark fishers. We show them how to measure the shark, how to
Okay.
take pictures of the shark, how to identify the shark. They rotate the claspers. They do the whole 9 yards of
Right.
identifying a shark. And so that's an income generator for them, because in the Pacific it's very different. There they don't want education
Right.
because they have schools
Okay.
available to them.
Okay.
So what they need is income. So in 2020, when the pandemic hit, and I had two projects, and I was like, oh my god, how am I gonna how am I going to finish those projects? And then, I was just very faithful. And I said to the monitors, okay, we can't move because we're actually in Guatemala. They stopped all activity.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wait a second. My battery is running out.
Yep, no worries.
Give me 1 second. Um, Sorry about that.
That's okay.
It's okay.
Okay, I think we're good. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
That's okay.
Yeah,
No problem.
yeah. So 2020, we were not able to do any field work, but we had trained four communities at that time, four communities in to be able to do landings. And so what we did is we did it through WhatsApp.
Yeah.
We made groups. And so they would send us the landing pictures in the group, the piece of paper where they recorded the measures, and then one of our core team members that I have a lot of appreciation for would put in an Excel sheet all the data.
Yeah.
And 2020 was like, we have data for an entire year of the 5 communities of every single day.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
we talked to our grantors and we said, can we use the money to pay them so that we could have, the result? And they were like, yeah, you can do that. And from that point on, I was like, why are we going and monitoring when these guys have it? Like all you need to do
Yeah.
is
They're already out on the boats.
yeah, make sure that
Yeah.
the WhatsApp pictures that they send us are taken properly,
Yeah.
that they're not missing information. And then also, you said how you do an NGO for shark and ray conservation with an economist, and I was smart at I was smart at hiring actually 2 great scientists. One left because he had a better opportunity,
Right.
but he's still a very good friend, Omar Santana. Omar has worked a lot with great whites,
Okay.
and he helped us out for a while. So, because here in Guatemala, there's no biology. There's not a career in biology. There's not that many shark experts. So
Right.
how do you bring a team with an economist
Yeah.
that has no biology background in this? And so I just looked from abroad, and I said, would you like this job? It would be from abroad. And he said yes. And then he had to go. And then right now I'm actually working with Juan Carlos Perez. You know him, Dave, and he's helping us as well. Just to create this new camada. How do you say camada? It's like when puppies. This new group of young kids.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. Okay. Yeah. New group. Yep.
The new group of young kids where they can get educated,
New
where he can
generation.
revise the work. Yeah, new
Yeah.
generation of shark scientists, and they're amazing. They're really amazing. The job that they do. Um, for me, the most important part is how they treat the fishers with respect. Uh, um, we believe that they know a lot more than we do, for sure.
Yep.
Once they're in the sea, they're like, oh yeah, over there you will find the 6 gill shark, and over here you will find that, like, they're just amazing. They have so much knowledge, and
Yeah.
now we work with them. We continue working with them. right now, actually, I'm super happy because we were able to get enough donations so that they are have a stable income source for the entire year. So all they have to do is collect data, and then and that's how we work with them. And then once every 15 days, we go, we say hello, what's up, anything
Yeah.
new, do you need anything? They were actually the ones that learned also how to tag the hammerheads. So most of the tagging now is being done by the fishers as well, now
Right.
that they were trained. And now, if they can, they are liberating a small hammerhead. So it kind of also gave them a that consciousness or that beauty of releasing this small little animal and letting it go so that they can get bigger fish, hopefully,
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
later
Where
on.
do, where where do you see, like, you've done amazing stuff over the last 10 years? Where do you sort of see, what's sort of your next step? What do you see in the future going forward?
The future going forward would be for me to be able to do landings in one community in the Caribbean, which is the Impossible Landings Caribbean place, because they trust no one, and
Mm,
it's mostly because they don't do things right, and that's all I'm going to say.
Yeah,
right.
okay.
And
Right.
so they don't want anybody to be recording things. So I would love to do that. I would love to, for example, with the fishing department, now that we've some friends told us about anal fins, and how anal fins can be a way of characterizing um, este, characterizing the shark landings. For me, a dream would be to be able to talk to the government and say, in order for them to issue them a license, please let us have the anal fins so that
Right.
we can give
Yeah,
it to
yeah,
partners in Belize that are doing that work, and they
yeah,
can get those regressions done, and we can
yeah,
characterize what, without having to
yeah,
take pictures and without having to be near them, most of the sharks
yeah,
that are landing.
yeah.
But I
Well,
would love to continue working well, the science stuff, which I say that I'm really into it now.
yeah, yeah.
I'm really,
Well,
really, really into it now.
Well,
Yeah.
well, at least this has been a terrific discussion, conversation with you, because I didn't know really much. I've known you for a little while, but I didn't really know, like, a lot of what's going on in Guatemala and Central America. But like Guatemala, El Salvador, there's not a lot known. There's just been super fascinating. Can I? One last thing I wanted to ask you before I let you go here is, what advice would you have for some person, younger person, or someone who's young at heart, who wants to pursue a similar career? What advice would you have for them?
Uh, Go for it.
Go
Just
for it.
go for it.
Just
Like, go for it. And that's the thing. A lot of people say to me, like, "Oh, I'm in marketing, but I don't know how to contribute to conservation." I'm like, "Well, you could make some arts for an NGO, mine, if you want."
hint, hint.
Or yeah, or lawyers who can help, with things to do with laws and things to
Yeah.
do, like, everyone has the opportunity, not necessarily being just a biologist or a marine biologist, to be able to contribute to this world and to be able to leave, your positive footprint in life, and especially in with animals that have nobody else to protect them or to
Right.
help them out,
hmm
and I hope for people, who are having families and who have children, that they decide to do that, because you want to be able to live a livable world for your
Right.
kids,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Absolutely.
Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely. Well,
I love that.
thank yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us today. This has been incredible. And we'll definitely have to have you back on at some time later on in the future. Maybe have something exciting, some more exciting news. We'll have you come on. But thank you so much, Elisa, for joining us today on the Beyond Jobs
Oh, thank you.
podcast.
Like I say, it's an honor for me. When you invited me, I was like, Me?
Well, we're super excited. We were super excited to have you on, and your story is very inspirational in terms of how does starting an NGO in a place where there's no other NGOs to protect sharks and get to know more about sharks, and the way you work with the fishing communities is just absolutely amazing. And we look forward to hearing more of your success. And thank you so much for sharing all the stories. We appreciate it.
No, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so
Awesome.
much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye
All
bye.
right.
Bye bye.